Morning, Tom.
Morning, Greg. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
Good. Let's just check this record. I want to make sure I'm recording to the cloud. We're definitely happy to be having them back. And I think they were smart to keep the Muck Dog name and everything, and so there's some continuity and everything. Like I said, a lot of people, 50%, maybe 75% of the people that go to the games won't know the difference between, the NYP League or the Collegiate Wood Bat League. So it's good baseball.
Exactly.
You got, you have a beer and a hot dog and you're watching baseball out in the sun. That's all people really care about. So
exactly.
I think it'll go over well. And these guys have got some experience. Down in Elmira, he runs a minor league. That's a team in this league, also a minor league hockey team. So, he and his wife know what they're doing too. That's a good thing too. So it should be good. So.
Yeah. Did you want to try to make me co-host? So when I try to share my screen, it says host disabled, participant screen sharing. So
if I do that,
or can you enable screen sharing?
I'll try that first, and
for participants,
work, because I've got to let people in. Otherwise, you're going to have to be letting people in. You don't want to do that. So multiple participants can share simultaneously. So I just clicked on that. See if that works for you. If not, we'll have to making a co-host would be a pain because.
No, I'm good. And
you're good. Okay, good. All right.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
We've got a couple people in the waiting room. We're going to wait a few minutes, let them in. So.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the new stuff on the front end. The only problem is a lot of it isn't actually done as far as rules and stuff. So I'll let people know that the new PPP is here and some of that. And there are these other things. There's something going on with the EIDL Advance, but it hasn't been worked out exactly yet. There's something with these shuttered venue grants for theaters and music venues and that sort of stuff.
I just got an email from Schumer's office about that there's something, what's his name? Chris Zeltman, who's been really helpful. Thursday. Oh, you guys are putting on, the SBA is putting on a webinar Thursday at 3:00.
Yep. I was going to say we're having our internal one today. So, so that'll be our learning process. So I'm just going to go over those couple of things on the front end and just kind of let people know, but I can't dig too deep into it right now because they're still kind of finalizing all the rules and that stuff for all this. So, and then I'll just focus on PPP forgiveness. And then we'll talk about, or then we'll just answer questions from people.
Yeah, I bet there'll be a lot of questions, and
there always is. Yep.
And I'll try to monitor that through the chat box and everything, and feed you the questions, and like we've done before. Yeah, I told you. I don't know if Kelly told you. I think as of like 3 or 4 o'clock yesterday was 62 people signed up for this. So there's obviously a lot of interest in it.
I'm not surprised. I did one with our SCORE chapter and our small business development centers, and we had 770 people on one on January 6th, what that one was. So, I mean, people are definitely interested. And I saw a stat last night that I think about 170 billion of the loans have been forgiven so far, but that's out of 500-600 billion. So there's still a lot of people that have to do forgiveness, But hey, I just want to hop on early, make sure I got the tech. I'm just going to run to the restroom real quick, and then I'll be right back. Okay.
All right. I'm going to wait a couple minutes and let everybody in. So
I'll just be 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Today's homeschool day for the kids, so
Yeah, I was wondering, you're at home, huh? Yeah.
yeah, the rest of the week, and I'm my basement flooded a little while ago, so I've got it in
Oh boy. Yeah.
completely gutted for the most part, and just trying to work through that. So I set myself up a little card table down here. My last drywall that's left down here, I'm like, all right, I'll just sit in front of this for these for a little while. So
Yeah, why
you know,
not? Yeah.
my daughter's upstairs in her room, and then I got one in the kitchen. So
Yeah, it's crazy. I know.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna let people in. I got 11 in there right now, so
Okay, sounds good.
letting people in.
Yep.
There's Stephen.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. I think you're muted, Kelly.
Oh, hi, Greg.
Morning, Kelly. How you doing? Morning, Steven. How are you?
Hey, Greg.
Nope.
How's it going?
Good.
It's going.
That's good. That's good.
I have Elmo on in the background here. So
Very good. Yeah, I was just telling Tom, I'm in my basement that's completely destroyed right now.
Nice.
But we had a flood in November, and I just haven't, been working through it. But got one kid in the kitchen on one Zoom, another one up in her room. Thank goodness well, I guess he's 1.5 now. He's a good sleeper, so he's still sleeping actually. So
yeah, I have a 6-year-old on Zoom right now for school, and then Nolan's right in here watching Elmo. So
yep.
at least if I get bored, I can look over and watch that. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, is Nolan watching Elmo, or are you watching?
I put on Star Wars if it was me. So
I'd rather watch Greg Lindberg do this.
Me too, Tom.
I'm not as exciting with one of those mustaches like Steven's got, though, right?
I don't even notice it anymore, Steven.
It was full yesterday, and then Tom said, "What is all that crap on your face?" So I saved the time to get the mustache last night.
Wash your face. It's dirty.
If you can't really grow a beard, you shouldn't try.
Yeah,
it only takes like a year for me to grow a beard. So
yeah, it would take me about 3 years to grow that, I think. Slow and painstaking and very spotty. I can go days without shaving and people don't even notice. It's fine.
There's advantages of that.
Yes, there is, definitely. That's why, well, I started shaving my head when I was 20 years old. I was living in Vail, Colorado with my friends, and I didn't have enough money for haircuts. So we were doing snowmaking on Vail Mountain, 11 at night till 9 in the morning. And the rent was so high for what we got paid there. I'm like, I got to figure out something. I can't afford to get a haircut all the time. So I just bought a pair of clippers and started shaving my head and never looked back. So
There you go.
yep. 20 years later, I'm still shaving my head on my own, you know. Except now I have to go outside to do it because my wife yells at me. Well, doesn't yell at me, but she makes me clean the bathroom if I do it in there. So now I just do it outside on the grass. Zoop, zoop, zoop. Good to go.
It's compost.
Hell, you're in the office today, right? That's what
I
I see
am.
there, right?
No.
Okay. Very
Yeah,
good.
me
Very
too.
good.
There you
Yeah.
go. If anyone sneaks up behind me, let me know.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen that office or anybody's office. You know, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So
It's pretty quiet here. That's no fun. But
Are you
no.
full-time at home, remote, Greg?
We're 4 days at home, 1 day at the office. So Victoria goes in more.
Yeah.
She's probably one of us employees, so is there to cover plus one or two managers. Her, Frank are there most of the other days and stuff. So
Isn't Frank gonna retire one of these days?
no, he's not. He's absolutely not.
He's a
So
lifer. I know. He's
yeah,
been here forever, hasn't he?
yeah. I think he's either 50 or 60 years at the SBA.
wow.
That's incredible.
What is he? 88 years old, I think, maybe 87 or 88. I don't
Look
even
at that,
know.
Tom. Come on, you can do that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, for me, it's you know, it's all about retirement, right? I mean, that's half the reason you go to work for the government is the pension that you
Okay.
get at the end, right? So you can leave early and go golfing and stuff. So that's what I want to do.
Well, we've got 24. We
What
have
is
like
your email?
we had over 60 signed up. So
Fine. Online
I
registration's usually 50%, and then we're
yeah,
good, right? So
for everybody that's already on, we're going to wait a couple minutes because we know we have a lot more coming in. So I know it's 9:02 right now, but we had over 60 people signed up for this. So they're still coming in fast and furious here. So I will we'll give it a minute. We're at 26 now, so we probably won't get 62 because you always get 62 to sign up and they don't always show up. But we will wait a couple of minutes here, and then we'll get Greg on to have his presentation. So.
There's two people this morning that called that didn't get the link, so I'm sending it to them right now.
Okay, all right. Yeah, everybody else, I think, it came right through the registration. This always happens. So.
My mouse. Here's Steven's dog. Mo. We can't hear me. Mo.
he's on mute.
I know.
Got the best seat in the house. All right, 27.
We can get going if you want to do a little preamble here, Tom. And
yeah, because I can keep letting people in
yeah,
as they come. So,
Yep.
Yeah, well, welcome everyone who is already on. We've got Greg Lindberg here from the U.S. Small Business Administration to talk about PPP, not only the new programs that are coming out now, but the loan forgiveness for those of you that were fortunate enough to get PPP the first 2 times around. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg, and I think most of you know him. He's done a lot of our webinars for us, and he will guide us through this. So it's all yours, Greg.
All right, Tom, thank you. And good morning, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well today. Tom, I think somebody's gonna manage the chat box and feed questions to me as far as that goes.
Yes, I will do that.
Okay. So if you have questions as we're going through, just put them in the chat box and and we'll probably address them at the end, but if it's pertinent at the time, then you can interrupt me, Tom, as well. So welcome. I'm Greg Lindberg from the U.S. Small Business Administration Buffalo District Office. I know many of you just kind of looking through here. We've seen each other a time or two at the Genesee County Chamber, and we're all looking forward to seeing each other in person one of these days again here soon too. So this morning we're going to talk about some best practices for PPP loan forgiveness. I'm going to give a brief update on some of the programs that are coming. To be honest, the rules are still getting worked out on some of the stuff, so we can't give you everything today as far as some of the new stuff goes, but we'll tell you what to pay attention to, what to look for, and then you can ask some questions from there. As far as loan forgiveness goes, I know there's still a lot of people out there that haven't gotten their loans forgiven. I believe I saw last night our SBA Administrator Jovita Carranza tweeted that about 170 billion of the 500, 600 billion has been forgiven so far, or that we've received those applications. So there's still a lot of folks out there that need to wade through this. And unfortunately now it's this, double process, right? You need to get your loan forgiven, but also see if you are eligible to get a second one and see what else might happen out there. So, all right. With that, I'm going to start with the SBA update here. PPP round 2 is here. The Economic Aid Act was signed into law by the president on Christmas Day. So that got us moving on a whole bunch of different things. The biggest of which is PPP round 2. So they're going to be calling these loans first draw and second draw loans. So when you're talking to your bank or if you have clients that you work with, it's PPP first draw or PPP second draw. First draw means you haven't gotten one before. If you haven't gotten one before, there are some additional organizations that are eligible now. So that's something to check out. And if you haven't gotten one before, banks are supposed to have a little bit of preference for the first draw folks. In order to be eligible for a second draw PPP loan, your gross receipts have to be down 25% in one comparable quarter, Q1, 2, 3, or 4, from 2019 to 2020. So you have to show a 25% drop in gross receipts in one quarter in 2020 from that same quarter in 2019. And those quarters are based on however your fiscal year usually works. Most of us are cash on calendar year, but if you're not, then it has to be in the same comparable quarter, and you can't shift quarters and pick months. All right, so that is a big deal. If you are looking for a PPP second draw loan as well, you have to show that you have spent your PPP first draw money, and it will be available to businesses with 300 employees or less. Also, the max loan size is $2 million. It was 10 million in round 1, and now it's 2 million in round 2. So PPP round 2 is coming. Banks are not accepting those applications yet. I would expect in the next week or two that they'll begin to do that. Some of them are beginning to reach out to customers to get information and some of that stuff. So the advice is to reach out to your bank, but also for you as a business owner, to make sure that you're eligible, in the sense that if you don't have that 25% drop in gross receipts, then you're not going to be eligible for the program this time. So that's something that you need to work on as far as your financials go. And if you need help with that, if you have a CPA or something, you reach out to them for that. We also have our folks at the Small Business Development Centers and SCORE who can help you on that as well. So it's
Hey,
coming. Yep.
I'm gonna jump in with a question. We've got a question about that. I
Sure.
think it's good to hit rather than wait till the end. I think it's the question is the PPP loan itself included in the gross receipts? So
No.
say no. Okay, I would have thought that too. So
No. Yeah.
that answers that question. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. The original PPP income is not taxable. So. Okay, so EIDL advance grants, they're doing something with this program. We're not exactly sure what's going to happen. Right now, SBA is looking to see at the amount of money Congress gave us and to see how the grants can be dispersed. If you got one the first time and it wasn't the full one, they may be doing something, but we're waiting for additional guidance. The shuttered venue grants, those are for your theaters and your comedy clubs, your music venues. So that's coming. That information will be rolling out a little bit more at the end of the week. The biggest thing is if you are one of these shuttered venues and fit into that program, you're going to have a choice of PPP or the shuttered venue grant. So you're going to have to take a look and see what offers the most relief to your business in that sense. The shuttered venue grant may make more sense because if you're something that hasn't been able to be open and then why would you want a PPP to pay payroll for something that you can't do, right? The grant itself may be better. We'll have to see what the programs are, what the information is there. The SBA debt relief program, first time around, SBA paid, I think it was 6 months of payments for any borrowers that had SBA loans. There is going to be some relief again, waiting for confirmation on what that relief is going to be, but there is something coming there as well. So stay tuned on all these things. The information is going to be coming fast and furious over the next week, but those are some of the key things you can look out for. If you have not gotten an economic injury disaster loan and feel that it may be important for your business to apply for one at this point, the disaster declaration for COVID-19 was extended until the end of this year now, 2021. So that is something you can apply for. If you got an economic injury disaster loan and, some folks didn't take all the money they were approved for or whatever else, you can apply for reconsideration through the SBA Disaster Assistance Center to, get additional funds. So that is something that is available too if you're looking for additional ways to get some access to capital. And now those loans maxed out at $150,000 before, so if you already got the 150, you're not going to be able to get more than that. But if you didn't get up to that and you're have the financial information to prove that you'll be able to pay an additional loan back, there may be an opportunity there. For new applications, you're going to that covid19relief.sba.gov. For reconsideration applications, you can email me and I can give you the email address those are sent to, or you can call the disaster 800 line for that. So, all right. So again, this presentation is current as of this morning at 9:08. I don't know what time it is. So we'll see. Like I said, information is going to be coming fast and furious. So now we'll just talk about the PPP loan forgiveness. I think this is an important topic for everybody. We want to make sure, just as you do, that you spend these funds appropriately, and that my lights are dimming and I don't know what's happening down here. It's just so we want to make sure you spend these funds appropriately and that you get your loan forgiven. I mean, that's the key here. This is money that we don't want to see have left over. So most folks know, there's an 8-week or 24-week covered period, and we'll dig a little deeper on that. But on the eligible costs and the things that you can use these PPP funds for, so payroll costs, 60% of the loan has to be spent on payroll. No question about that. No. If you don't do that, you're going to see a reduction in your loan forgiveness. And you don't want a reduction in your loan forgiveness, because then that means you're going to owe some money back at the end of it. Okay. So 60% has to be spent on payroll costs. You're not supposed to have reduced wages more than 25% during this covered period. That's the 8 or 24 weeks that you're using to spend the money. And you're supposed to maintain the average number of full-time equivalent employees that you had when you applied for the loan originally. So here's the deal. There's also these safe harbors. Some businesses haven't been allowed to open because of local government restrictions, state restrictions. So there is an opportunity for folks that are in that position and weren't able to open and do business, to use some of those safe harbors there when it comes to the full-time equivalent employees, to not have a reduction in loan forgiveness. So just something to be aware of, and something to, if you're in this position, you may want to look at the safe harbors and talk to your bank about those to see if that's applicable to you. Business rent payments, and for all of this, and including next year's programs, the key date for businesses is still February 15th of 2020. Your business had to be started before then. Your lease had to be in force for these rent payments. Your mortgage, if you were using mortgage interest, had to be, incurred before February 15th of 2020. Your utility payments, also the services needed to be in place before that date. And that date has stayed the same for the second draw PPP loans as well. So that is the key date. Unfortunately, if your business started after that, it's not something that's eligible right now. So that's what we're looking at. 40% of the money can be used to can be spent on rent, mortgage interest, and utilities. There has been some expansion, and we're waiting to see what that expansion there for PPE for the second draw, and some other things that might become eligible expenses, but we don't know where they're going to fit in yet. So we're kind of holding back on what we can tell people, but there is a little expansion there. For most businesses, the easiest way to do this is to spend 100% on payroll, to use the 24-week covered period and spend 100% on payroll. You are only allowed to borrow 10 weeks of payroll that you get the chance to spend over 24 weeks. It makes your life easier. It makes the bank's life easier. Then all you have to do is pull your payroll records instead of all this other stuff. So the suggestion is, make it easy for yourself, make it easy for the bank, make it easy for SBA. Use the 24-week covered period, and chew up 100% of it on payroll. It just makes it simple. Like I said, this was based on your average monthly payroll times 2.5, right? Which works out to 10 weeks. So you had 10 weeks you have 24 weeks to spend 10 weeks of payroll. So make it easy for yourself, easy for the bank, and that's our suggestion there. Okay.
Greg, can I jump in there, Greg? Just a couple of questions. So it's 10 weeks of payroll that you can do, not 8 weeks?
Yeah, so the 8-week covered period is what you had to spend it originally. But then that was expanded to 24 weeks.
Okay.
What you can borrow, it was actually 10 weeks of payroll because it was your average monthly payroll times 2.5.
Okay,
That's
so
where the calculation came from.
8 weeks would be forgivable though, right? Out of that.
What did you say?
8 weeks of that is forgivable if you do
No, all of it is forgivable, but here, let me talk a little bit more on the covered period because I think that
I've got another question on that.
Okay.
Same. What consists of payroll? Would that be something like if the simple IRA is included, would be included, insurance, health insurance?
Yeah, there's been an expansion in that for this next round as well. So yes, some of those additional costs, including the payroll taxes and some of that, are going to be eligible as well.
It's considered payroll, but not other expenditures?
Yes. Yeah. So there's a bit of an expansion in that, and you know, some of those things. I believe the health insurance was good the first time around anyway. I'd have to go back and look because these rules are constantly changing. But it is more than just the salary that you pay someone.
Okay. All right.
So okay. So and this 8-week versus 24-week covered period. So that borrowers who got PPP loans before June 5th of last year were automatically put into an 8-week period. Now, those borrowers have the choice of choosing 8 weeks or 24 weeks. So you used to have 8 weeks to spend this 10 weeks of payroll you were able to borrow. That's why the rent and some of the other expenses mattered more because you had to fit that in. Now you have the option to choose the 24-week covered period if your loan was before June 5th, or you automatically get the 24-week covered period if your loan was after June 5th for the first draw. So there was an update to the PPP rules on June 5th, obviously, and that expanded it and made it a little easier I think that's when they reauthorized the second round of funds for it. So now you have this 24 weeks, which is your covered period, you know, when that money needs to be spent, right? This covered period is when you need to pay your payroll, when you need to have your rent payments, anything that you're going to charge to the PPP loan as something you want forgiven has to fall within this covered period, okay? That covered period started from the date your funds were dispersed into your bank account. Okay, so, and for some folks, expanding to the 24 weeks helped even more because that date the funds were deposited didn't match up with the pay cycle well. So maybe they missed, you know, one round of pay cycle, and instead of having to use an alternative covered period and some other stuff, you know, just make it simple for yourself. Choose the 24-week covered period, and really just charge it all to payroll, and you're going to be good to go. So as long as you spent the funds as you were supposed to. All right. The repayment terms, if you have anything left on your loan, and that's the goal here, right? To spend the money appropriately so you don't have a loan at the end. If you do end up having a loan at the end, it's a 1% interest rate. It's a 2 or 5 year term, depending on the date of the PPP loan. Again, June 5th is the key. If your loan was before June 5th, it was a 2-year term. If your loan was June 5th or after June 5th, it's a 5-year term. So, and let's be honest, like, you know, banks don't want to have these little 1% loans over 2 to 5 years laying around. They want you to get forgiveness just as much, right? This is a servicing nightmare for them to have to deal with any small amount that might be left over. So work with, you know, us, work with your CPA, work with your bank to make sure that you're getting your full forgiveness here. If your loan was before June 5th, the bank does not have to extend the loan to 5 years. So they can keep it at a 2-year term. So it has to be something that's mutually agreed on between the two of you. So that's just a heads up if you do end up not getting full forgiveness. All right. So when do your first payments come due? If there's anything left over, it's on the date the SBA remits the loan forgiveness amount to the lender. Or if you do not apply for forgiveness 10 months after the end of the borrower's covered period, 8 or 24 weeks is when your first loan would be, or first loan payment would be due to the bank. So remember, this is a loan. Remember that it's something that has to be paid back unless you do your due diligence and submit the application, the forgiveness application to the bank and go through the process and everything. You've got time, which is good. And I'll be honest, banks were waiting to accept these because they were waiting for Congress to do something else with the program. And Congress didn't do anything else for a while. And then, banks started accepting applications, and now, Congress has changed the rules on them again, with this latest update and everything. So, and they've been doing great work. It's just a tough situation, and, we're all kind of, flying by the seat of our pants, waiting to see what happens from Congress and all that stuff as far as things move forward on this. Now I think we're in a pretty good spot as far as where we're going to be moving forward and not seeing too many changes to the program from here. But just know you have to submit that forgiveness application. Your bank will be working with you on it if they haven't already. There's a ton of people that got these loans. So, and just an example at the bottom, so if a borrower's PPP loan is dispersed on June 25th, okay, that's the day you got your funds. The 24-week covered period ends on December 10th, 2020. All right. If the borrower does not submit a loan forgiveness application to its lender by October 10th, 2021, the borrower, business owner, must begin making payments on or after that October 10th date. Okay. So that's the covered period. Your 24 weeks was June 25 to December 10th. December 10th is that last day of the covered period. Okay. That's when you had the time to spend the funds that you've received. Okay. So 10 months from the end of the covered period is when that first loan payment is going to be due no matter what. Okay. But you're all good. I know everybody's going to submit their forgiveness ahead of time and we'll be all set. But if you come into a position where you're waiting, you do have some time, I guess is the message here. All right. So this is something that was causing a headache for businesses and banks. These EIDL advance grants that were given out were being deducted from PPP loan forgiveness. And that's something that, like I said, the EIDL advance grant could have been between $1,000 and $10,000. And so if you had a PPP loan for $60,000 and you got full forgiveness, the $60,000, you were still going to owe $10,000 back to the bank and SBA because of that EIDL advance grant. The Economic Aid Act has changed that. These EIDL advance grants are no longer removed from loan forgiveness, thank goodness. And again, this was, part of the nightmare. Number one, it wasn't really fair for businesses, right? That, you were being stuck, holding the bag on this stuff at the end. So you're not going to have that issue anymore. But also, you would have had a between $1,000 and $10,000 loan due over, X amount of time. It didn't make sense. So Congress did change that. Now that advance is not subtracted anymore. If you are someone who already did forgiveness and has begun making payments on that money that was left over, the banks will have a mechanism, SBA and the banks will have a mechanism to back out, and credit you any money that maybe you've paid or was left over on that loan. Again, and that's why the banks were waiting to accept these forgiveness applications, because now you've got this big change that it affects the system, affects the borrower, affects the bank. It's a big deal. So but good news for you, the business owner, that's not going to be subtracted from your forgiveness amount anymore. Okay. Sole proprietors and independent contractors with 0 employees. You need to document the payment to yourself as payroll or owner draws, so it's easy for the bank to see. Use a check if you can and label it to pay yourself. You pay yourself 10 weeks of payroll, which should equal your entire PPP loan, right? Make it easy for yourself, make it easy for the bank. If you have a payroll company, that's the easiest way to do this. Most folks in this situation don't. But you just want to be able to show the documentation. Banks are going to be asking for, we're going to go through the documentation here for a minute, but again, the biggest message in all of this and making it simple for your self as a business owner, for your clients if you're helping businesses, if you use the money appropriately, use the 24-week period, do it 100% to payroll if that makes sense and you paid it that way, and make it simple. So, all right. So some steps for loan forgiveness. The first one, number 1, you contact your PPP lender and complete the correct form. So most banks have an online intake process. SBA does have, some forms, and there actually are going to be new forms now with the legislation update for loans 150,000 or less. There's supposed to be a much shorter form now for folks to fill out. So you want to get with your bank, whoever made you the PPP loan, and find out what their process is for forgiveness. Compile your documentation. So you're going to need this stuff on, if you're getting forgiveness on a loan, if you're doing a first draw or a second draw PPP loan, you're going to need some information generally. But on the payroll side, you want to provide documentation for all the payroll periods that overlap with the covered period, or potentially an alternative covered period if you use that. Bank account statements or third-party payroll service reports, okay? Tax forms, your payroll tax filings, your IRS 941s, state quarterly business and individual wage reporting. Okay, so there's a lot of ways you can prove this, but you're going to have some documentation showing that you paid the payroll. So there's a bunch more stuff on here, and I can share this presentation. But for non-payroll stuff, they usually want to see like the lease or the money coming out of a bank account some way, canceled checks. So just know that that's out there. And that's why I say to go 100% on payroll, because then you only have to deal with the payroll documentation versus having to then go find the other stuff for rent and everything else. So if it makes sense to do it like that, do it. All right. So, and again, on the rent and lease stuff, they want a copy of the current lease agreement, receipts or canceled checks verifying those payments. So it's just more stuff you have to run down. So just know that that's out there. And Tom, Kelly, Steven, somebody can share this presentation afterwards as well if you want, so that people have this list of stuff. Okay. All right. Once you get your documentation together, so the new process is supposed to make this easier, and you're still going to need the documentation, but you may not, depending on the size of your loan, you may not have to submit it, but you are going to have to keep it for at least 4 years with the information in case of audits and stuff. So you're going to have it all in one place, put it in a manila envelope, and, it,
I think we've lost you there, Greg. Seem to have frozen up. Okay. Yeah, well, as when we're waiting for Greg to get back, I can tell you that we will have this. Greg will send us the PowerPoint, and we will put it up on our website. Stephen, is that correct? Or
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
okay,
we'll put it on the website, and then I'll upload it to YouTube too. So,
all right. I think he just left us and is going to try to rejoin us. So I'll be looking. Here he comes.
With his Wi-Fi.
Okay, he's coming back. So
There he is.
there he. Welcome back.
all right, you guys fill this out for a little bit. Well,
Yeah, we did a little song and dance while you were
all
gone.
right, very good. I was just taking a little break there. So internet induced break, I guess.
Yeah.
So. All right. So yeah, again, communication with your lender is key. You might want to email them. It's a busy time for them right now. Patience in all of this process is asked for with the banks and everybody else. I mean, this is a significant volume at one time that they're working through, and they all are doing their best. So we appreciate all the work everyone's doing. So all right. So then you're going to submit your forgiveness form and documentation and whatever that looks like to the bank. And then just, stay in touch with the lender. They'll let you know when your loan has officially been forgiven or if there's any money left over. All right. Some tips from a banker.
Right, which is understandable, but yeah,
Can everybody mute themselves? I hear somebody on the phone in the background. Hard to talk. So tips from a banker, right? A local banker, I asked them, someone who's processing these forgiveness applications, what are the things folks can do to make this easier for themselves, to make this easier for you? Sorry, I'm trying to switch screens here. There we go. Okay. So the first is understanding the difference between the 8-week covered period versus the 24-week covered period. It often makes the difference between partial or full forgiveness when it comes to these loans, the PPP. And again, the recommendation from us, is to use that 24-week covered period. Make it easy for yourself. Okay. When available, provide third-party payroll reports in lieu of internal reports. Okay. Third-party payroll reports make it easy for the bank to see, that you've transferred the funds over there and they've paid it out of the accounts. So it just makes it easy. If utilizing your IRS 941 quarterlies, be sure to include copies of the corresponding bank statements, right? And that's, again, it's more documentation there. Which is, if you're using, a third-party company, Paychex, ADP, whatever, your local, person, whoever it may be, use those, make it simple. And when supplying other expenses incurred as part of your forgiveness application, be sure to include proof of the incurred costs prior to 2/15/2020. Okay. There was a holdup in the processing because that proof needs to be showed. So the other eligible expenses, that's the rent, mortgage, interest, utilities, have to prove that those were in force or in agreement before the 2/15 of 2020. All right, so those are some of the general things that folks need to look for and do on the PPP. EIDL, because I get a lot of questions on the economic injury disaster loan. I've added this slide here just to say these are some of the things you can do and can't do with this money. EIDL proceeds can be used for general operating expenses for your business, okay? That can be purchase of supplies, that you can pay payroll with it, you can buy PPE with it, you can do marketing and advertising, you can pay the regular loan payments on debts or credit cards, the monthly kind of payments, okay? Working capital, other fixed expenses, your utilities, your rent, whatever it may be. The economic injury disaster loan funds cannot be used for physical repairs, expansion of facilities, acquisition of fixed assets, bonuses, owner distributions, or refinancing existing debt, which is probably the one I get the most questions about. And note that PPP and EIDL funds cannot be used for the same purpose, okay? So just at a high level, those are some of the things you can and cannot do with that money because we get a lot of questions on those. Where can you go? What can you do? You know, we got small business development centers, we got SCORE mentors, women's business centers, veteran business outreach centers located all across the state. You know, my suggestion is if you have any questions on this or any questions on business in general, that you reach out to them. You know, I know we've got, you know, somebody in Batavia right at the Genesee Economic Development Center. So just know that help is there for you. All you have to do is ask for it. If you ever want to, you know, have a conversation with me or anybody else, we're available. So I spend most of my day on the phone now, counseling people or talking them through this stuff, or doing these types of presentations. So, but there's lots of help for you and assistance out there. So please feel free to give us a call and we're here to help. Doesn't cost you anything either. So, and these are some links for afterwards, but the US Treasury website and the SBA website, these are constantly updated with the new rules and everything. And, you know, that is happening now because of the new rules for the new PPP and Economic Aid Act. These things are beginning to populate on these websites. So if that's something that you're interested in, you know, reading further, then my suggestion would be to take a look at that. With that, that's my information. You know, you're welcome to, you know, give me an email or a call, and I'm happy to help. You know, any questions that you may have, we'll talk through them. Everybody's got a different situation when it comes to this, and you know, we're dealing with a lot of different and unique things over the past year here. So I just, you know, we're here for you, and whatever we can do to help, we will. So with that, Tom, I'll take any questions that you have. And
yeah, we have some on the chat board. Some of you covered it during your presentation. Like, what if you're an only employee? You covered that one. I believe you covered the covered operating expenses, what they are, what those are included. That was the EIDL advance, whether it has to be prepaid if you're going for PPP. Covered that. But here's an interesting one that I'm sure you haven't covered here. It's from Russ Marchese. He owns a pet boarding facility called Bed and Bones Pet Lodge. He's a good member, and I've kept my dog there. I'd highly recommend Bed and Bones. So he says his NAICS number is 812, but it's for pet boarding. But his question is, would my business fall under the accommodation feature of the Payroll Protection Program 2.0 maximum loan amount and increased assistance for accommodation and food service businesses? Says accommodation is defined to include boarding, but does not state whether it's human or animal or both.
Yeah, so it's NAICS code 72 that's eligible for that max loan amount on the second draw, which is a accommodation in food service. That's the one. So if you don't fall into 72, and what he's asking for everyone there is that there's normally you can borrow 2.5 times on the PPP, but for that specific NAICS code 72, it's going to be eligible for 3.5 times your average monthly payroll, because that's where most of the restaurants and food service and stuff and hotels and things fall into there too, I believe.
So probably pet boarding doesn't fall into that, right?
If it's not NAICS code 72, no.
Okay.
That's the only one that's eligible as far as we know right now.
Okay. Are ag loan payments covered by first draw forgiveness?
So they're making a payment on a current farm service loan, or so generally no would be the answer. Okay, I mean it's pretty defined as far as on the forgiveness is payroll costs, it's rent, utilities, and mortgage interest. Right now I would say no without having further information. So
okay. When applying for forgiveness for a second draw PPP loan, does the full-time equivalent reduction calculation comparison period remain the same as the first draw?
So good question. So you are able to choose 2019 or 2020 for the second draw as far as your payroll and full-time equivalent employees. So the question you have to ask yourself as a business owner is 2020 might have been worse than 2019, probably for most people, right? If I figure it on the 2019, I may be able to get more money on the PPP loan, but I may owe more money because maybe my full-time equivalent employees aren't where they were in 2019 versus where I'm at in 2020. Now, maybe 2020 gets better and you roll the dice and you do get back to that number towards the end of the year. So that's a decision that business owners have to think about, because if you don't get back there, I don't think the safe harbors are going to apply on the second draw the way they did on the first one. Or at least we don't know how they're going to apply yet on the second draw versus the first one. So you can use either year, 2019 or 2020, but it's just a matter of where you feel if you're going to make that FTE number back, and if you don't mind, maybe even having a little bit of a loan left over because this is some access to capital, then maybe you still figure it on 2019 and use that FTE number and realize that you may have some loan left over at the end. Tom, you're muted.
I'm trying to do the right thing. Well, yeah, all right. Well, thanks, Greg. That's all the questions we have right now. And again, this presentation will be up on our website as soon as you send it to us. And there's a lot of information on who you can contact between Greg and the Small Business Development Corporation. Again, we've got to remind everybody that that's free when you call these people for advice, regardless of the situation. That's a lot of free help and good information. So Greg, it's great working with you, and you give us a lot of great information. We will look forward to talking with you in the future. So
sounds good. Always a pleasure, Tom, Kelly, Stephen, and everybody. Hang in there. We'll get through this and get back to normal soon, hopefully, right? So
we hope.
all right.
Thanks, Greg.
All right. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.